Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Elite City Podcast. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're just going to tackle the illustrious Toni Storm. So we have Biddy J and Rick, full house. How's everybody doing, first and foremost? Awesome. Last week, I wasn't here because a friend of mine's mom passed away. So that's where I was last week. So.
Hey, I'm doing great, by the way. Sorry.
Hey, there it is.
I was gonna. Sorry, we were all.
I thought we were all muted. I was like, is anybody gonna? Nope. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I loved how that turned out when you said I was away last week because a friend of my mom's passed away, and Jay chopped in with, "I'm fine though. I'm doing great."
I mean, if I was in Vegas for Avian interviewing porn stars as one does, I got a horrible chest cold, thought I was gonna die, and yet she persevered. And I flew home yesterday, and I didn't die.
There you go.
My office lost heat for 3 weeks. That was fun.
Yeah, that sucks. That's pretty bad.
Especially when it was in like -11 last week.
Oh,
Yeah, well,
that
that's
sucks.
when I left for Vegas. It was -1, and I got out there, and it was 52, and I was hanging out outside in a t-shirt, and people were walking by in parkas, looking at me like I was the crazy one.
Yeah, this weather sucks. I had the air conditioner on today. Pathetic.
You're insane.
It's over 50 degrees.
I had
That's
it
the
set
rule.
now that we have a furnace again, I had it set to 73 in the
Oh my
office.
God.
It
Jesus
was
Christ.
rainy and cold. I'm sorry.
If
I'm a baby, right, Rick?
the,
None of these numbers make any sense to me
I know.
in any way.
the-
Whoa, I'm Canadian. I don't understand things.
we should go to the customary system, though. Makes way more sense.
Yeah, because every other country in the world.
Correct.
Yes,
Does it?
I mean, to be fair, I agree to a point. Although
Look,
Fahrenheit
when
makes
when the war starts, you guys are gonna be desperate for lumber and maple syrup. So
That is
But
very
anyway, oh, Toni Storm, let's go.
true. Correct. Yeah, we're just going to take a deep dive into her career and just general topics. As if you think of something, say it, throw it out there. I did like a little timeline of her career. First and foremost, I didn't put any of her titles on it because this girl has won everywhere she went. And just in titles, I had like a page and a half of stuff. So I just eliminated all that. But my God, she decided she saw wrestling one time. This is according to her Wikipedia, first off. She was at her grandmother's house and she was like, I'm going to do that one day. 4 years later, makes her debut at 14 years old in 1995.
Was
First
this
off-
in Australia or
Australia.
England? Yeah.
So I'm sorry. She was born in 95. I'm sorry. She made her debut in 09.
I was like,
Excuse
wait,
me.
the math is not
I
math.
just
Yeah.
crumbled.
She was
into-
14. She was 14 years old. I was in high school when she was born. It's insane. Like she just like it seemed like everything I read about her life. If somebody would ever make a movie about it, it would be the most interesting thing ever. Like who decides at 10 years old they're going to do something, not only goes through with it and then becomes like the top of the industry that
it
they're
would
in.
if there was a movie, it could only be starring her though.
Correct.
Is she like the dude from that commercial, the most interesting man in the world, but she's Toni Storm?
Pretty much. And like her whole, like she's always had different gimmicks. And from the time she started, she never did anything
Mhm.
for like long periods of time. Oh, once she made it so far in Australia, she like literally was so green in the business. She was like, what do I do next? And they were like, well, normally people aren't this far along. The next step is to leave the country. So she was like, okay, and just randomly moves to England on, according to the internet, on a pretty much a whim, and like did the typical wrestling thing, like lived where she trained, which again, that's insane. She was trained by the second time she was trained by Dean Allmark, which if your last name's Allmark and you're not a wrestler, you should definitely make different life choices.
There's some hockey goalies with that name I know about.
I was not aware.
That about was so Canadian. Biddy.
That was super Canadian, Biddy.
That was. I was going to comment on it, but I didn't want to offend anybody. So
Hey,
at least,
The person you'd offend is Rick. Who cares?
I didn't.
well, I was just talking
I'm
about the
sorry,
other
that's how I
Canadians that listen.
talk.
Oh, she said sorry.
Because she's Canadian. We're claiming
She is.
you can join our you can join our side.
Listen, I told you, Rick. Fish goes down. I'm sailing across Lake Erie to you.
You're allowed. We count you. You're okay.
I know. I'm gonna be your nanny.
You can tell Rick that, hey, the floor needs vacuumed instead of the floor needs to be vacuumed.
Or just say run the vacuum.
That's a Yinzerism that we do that. We don't say the to be in sentences.
Yeah.
It's like a super like Western PA like Yinzer thing. We say like the floor needs vacuumed, or we say the
Correct.
trash needs
Taken out. Take the trash out.
The trash.
See, if you
Wow.
if you classify it as that, oh, this is just a thing we say in Pittsburgh, perfectly fine. If you try to say that that's correct, that's when that's becomes
Oh yeah,
a
that's
problem.
poor English, but I just didn't even
There,
realize we said it. I just
Well,
thought I
that's-
was dumb.
It's what we do.
I think
Yeah.
I've moved around so much as a kid and stuff. Like I don't even know. People are like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "Good question. I don't know."
Speaking
And
of
also-
moving. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Sorry. God, sorry. Is that
Speaking
better?
of moving, she went on to work for Progress Wrestling, which I also believe is English, but I'm not 100% sure. She was there for 3 years, from 2015 to 2018. In 2018, WWE kind of made her not an offer. They wanted to give her a tryout. She said no, which I think is, again, who does that, especially at that time? Like, nobody turned, like, that was just ballsy. I love it. Then she went to Stardom, and officially in 2016 through 2018. Then towards the end of Stardom is when the WWE times came, and those were not good times for her in general.
Listen,
Well, it
that
started off okay. She was in the Mae Young Classic, which was pretty cool.
Well, right,
Right, but
I meant like
There's a but.
her. Yeah, like they did things for her, but she absolutely hated every second of
listen,
everything they did there.
sad face picture of her with pie on her face. That seems to wrap up her WWE experience.
Yeah, but that's ignore like NXT she did fine in NXT. She did fine in NXT UK. She did fine in the Mae Young. It's when they called her up to the main roster that it got terrible.
And they humiliated her.
yeah, but didn't she
Yeah.
also have an issue out of the ring as well?
She hated every aspect of everything there. Like,
Yeah.
there was from day one, she considered walking out. That was, again, her words, not mine. Well, again, her words according to the internet. Until her biography comes out, this is all just kind of hearsay, I guess. But she said she felt from day one that she was never appreciated because the echo chamber there. They change everything. Obviously they have their own style. They have this. And the thing that she hated the most was you were always disrespected and talked down to because you didn't start there. It's like programmed into their DNA that if you come from somewhere else, you're just below them. And she always felt that no matter what, she was never going to be appreciated or her work was never going to be respected. It was like more or less like her love for the business died because no matter what, there was never like a, hey, good job, or hey, you did that really well. She made the statement on Renee Paquette's podcast right after she signed with AEW that WWE isn't wrestling, never was wrestling. It's barely entertainment. And I thought that was absolutely hilarious and probably one of the best jabs. Like, she didn't yell at anybody per se, like, oh, that place is okay, but this person sucks. Like,
well, and you know what? It explains why she's so ride or die with AEW.
Right. Well, definitely. Like, a lot of stuff makes way more sense now.
And thank goodness for everyone who loves wrestling and gets to experience this, because boy, did they miss out.
Well, exactly. And like
The
when
weirdest part of her leaving WWE is that she asked for her release, and they were just like,
Yes.
"Yeah, sure."
They didn't give a
Mhm.
shit.
Like, they didn't release anybody, but then she was just like, "I don't want to work here," and they're like, "Yeah, that's fine." That
Yeah,
was
we
weird
don't-
to me.
Yeah.
it was very
Because
weird.
they did not give one shit about her.
Right, but they just hold people all the
Right.
time. I mean, and before the internet gets bad, Tony Khan does the same thing. Ray Phoenix,
100%.
Ricky
Yeah.
Starks. I get it.
You
but-
sign a contract, to be fair.
Yeah,
But they've been doing that for years, though, at
it's
WWE. There's
weird
people that they've hung
just let her
on to.
go.
Yeah.
It's weird that they just let her go because even people who are horrendously unhappy there, they keep for a while at least.
Well, and I feel like I
Mustafa
did
Ali, poor Ali.
a couple years
Yeah.
ago. I read that they wanted to re-sign her after she started gaining traction in AEW, and she was like, "No."
Well, yeah, they did the same thing with Swerve.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Going back to what Rick said about how she was granted her release, she even said she was the most surprised person when they gave it to her, and for that reason is you have people over there who would just, again, she didn't name names, but you could probably figure out who it was, but would just come to work every day with their head down, just wanted to go home, didn't want to be there, and they were just basically forced to sit around for imagine being backstage for hours. It was if you're going to be there and work, that's one thing, but if you have to be there I don't know, just say you had to be there at noon, you'd spend 11 hours backstage in an arena all day. That would suck. But they did release her, obviously. And once she was free, that she actually considered going back to Japan. And then, obviously AEW offered her more money. And at the time, I'm not mistaken, I didn't look this up, but I have to ask Rick this one. It was Juice Robinson here yet, Rick? Do you know? She debuted in AEW on March 30th, 22. Do you know if Juice was here in 20?
I don't think he was in AEW yet. I think
Okay,
he was
so
in New Japan at the time.
Again, well, that's what I was just going to say. Probably a reason why she considered New Japan.
Yeah.
So, okay. But she made her AEW debut on the March 30th, 2022.
Yeah, he didn't come to AEW until September 2022.
Oh, okay. So there you go. And from day one, she basically had carte blanche to hit the ground running, like Biddy said. How back in the day, like I said, she always changed her character around. The only reason she kept the rock star Toni Storm is I kind of think of an underhanded slap to WWE because she knew it was stupid, but she was going to make it work type deal. And of course she did. Oh, I can't read my handwriting. Okay, here we go. She formed the Outcasts with Ruby Soho and Saraya, which I forgot Saraya was even a thing.
I forgot the Outcast existed until you just mentioned them. I liked them. I liked them more than
yeah.
Mitch. I thought
The
they were good.
Outcasts were awesome.
Well, and remember when she started defecting from them, she, their thing was spray painting.
Yes.
And then she was just spray painting in the air and laughing at it,
Yeah, that
Oh,
was
yeah.
fun.
Yeah. How do you
Yeah.
forget that?
It was,
That was pretty awesome.
She had been putting down the seeds for all of this long before anyone caught on. It's just
1000%.
She is-
Her path to becoming timeless Toni Storm was amazing.
she is
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
For a while, it wasn't even on screen. I remember, now that you mentioned it, I remember Saraya being like, "We don't know where Toni is. I think she's in the parking lot somewhere." They
Right.
didn't even show her. She was just wandering around.
and that's
It was great.
and again, not to sound cool or anything, but I know Saraya through friends outside of wrestling, and she's like, "Oh my god, I love Toni so much. She is she's like, I love her so much. She is one of the most wonderful people I've ever met, and I love working with her." And I was like, that's so cool to know. She's outside of wrestling and all that. She's honestly, outside of AEW and stuff, she's legit one of the greatest people I've ever met. I was like, that's dope.
awesome.
Yeah.
that's
She's
super cool.
super personable because I remember when she first came to AEW, she did the interview with with RJ City, and it wasn't like a real in character interview. It was the AEW show, but it was like
Yeah.
she wasn't really in character. She was kind of just herself,
Mhm.
and she's just so charismatic on her own. Just like I remember watching that, being like, oh yeah, she's going to be huge because she's just likable and like friendly and speaks well and like is good on camera. Like she could.
Right.
That's why every one of her characters I think has been so good because
Yeah.
she's just like
Soraya's
a likable person.
Saraya was like, I legitimately love both Tony and Ruby. They're great people, and I love working with them. And I feel really lucky that I get to work with them.
I feel
So-
like
That's awesome.
unrelated to Tony, but I also feel like Ruby got like the blessing of Lars Fredrickson to use
Oh,
that
100%.
name. That feels like a huge like green flag to me. Like they gave her
Oh,
that
absolutely.
blessing for it's their song,
Oh, absolutely.
and it's her name.
I mean, he's good friends with CM Punk, so you know he's a good judge of character.
Oh God.
Here we go. Shut up, Rick.
And I ruined the podcast.
You've been ruining everything since the first episode. Once the Outcasts were formed, they were together for, well, technically, I guess they're still kind of together. If you take Ruby off of maternity leave, but anyway.
Well, she popped the baby out, so she'll be
Yeah.
back soon.
100%.
And we're not going to talk about her too much, but how wonderful is Harley Cameron when we're talking about the Outcasts?
Harley is the best
I love her.
thing ever.
She's
Yes.
great.
She's
They're all great.
hilarious.
They're all
She-
hilarious. I love them all.
Yes. After the fall of the Outcasts, everything Toni Storm did from this point on was like in time with something big on an important date in WWE. Timeless Toni Storm debuted at Dynamite 200, which, if you go back to that show was absolutely stacked, and I actually forgot to write down everything else that was on it. But if you look at it, it was like a legendary show. But the one thing that is still like going on from that, like storyline wise, is Timeless Toni Storm. So like the fact that that's still going on is incredible. She came back as her re-debut as Rockstar Toni Storm at Winter is Coming 2024, which again, when she first came back is that, and we all said it would be great if she just got bumped on the head again and then forgot, but the way that they brought it back was a 1,000 times better. Which Timeless Toni Storm returns last week at Maximum Carnage, which, with the line, "What makes you think I've forgotten," was genius on so many
The way
levels.
she delivered that was incredible.
Yes. Like you think the segment's over. Oh, good.
And I don't like giving Triple H credit because he's a terrible person. I don't like him. But Mick Foley has said that it reminded me of the moment when Mick Foley turned from Mankind into Cactus Jack, if in '97, if anyone remembers that. And Mick
Yes.
Foley has said that why that was such a big deal is that he took off his button-up shirt and he had a Cactus Jack shirt on it, and the reason it mattered was because Triple H sold it like this was dangerous, like this was a scary thing.
Right,
This was
right.
If Triple H had just stood there, it would be like, oh yeah, he took his shirt off.
Right.
So,
It's the
so,
same
but
guy,
he
just
sold
different
it.
shirt.
and if you look at Mariah May, like she was like beating down Toni Storm, she was laughing at her, she walked away cocky, and then when
Spit on her.
she realized she was timeless, she kind of looked at it, she turned around really slowly,
Yes.
like, oh no,
Yes.
like she sold it, like it was a big deal, and that really helped.
Agreed. And so after doing, that little bit of research with Toni doing things on important AEW dates, I now think she's going to win the title at the first major show in her home country.
Yeah, I think she will.
But when I was reading through this, her and Mercedes / Sasha Banks at the time had they had a match in I think it was the first Mae Young Classic, and then I think they had one or two more matches while Toni was in NXT right before Sasha would have been either called up or Sasha came down. I don't know what it was, but it was like one or two matches. I would love if she wins the title and then calls out Mercedes, like, hey, we have some unfinished business. That'd be sick.
Well, and honestly,
would
that
think-
would make sense to get Mercedes, like, let her drop the TBS and let other people do that and let her move on to the world title. Like that,
Mhm.
that makes sense. Like,
I think they'll have to do a Tony Mariah 3 because if
Well, that's
Tony
true,
wins
too.
that Grand
That's true.
Slam, because then Mariah will have won in her home country
True.
and Toni
True.
Storm will have won in her home country. They
Right.
need to do a third one.
Very true. You
I
need the
think it
rubber
should be in
match.
Japan because that would be really cool.
Oh, and that's
Yes.
probably where it would happen. Good call. Oh, damn, that's a good one.
And this story's been how long has the story been going on? Like over a year now, right?
Yeah, she lost the title at All In, and then she joined
When did Mariah May show up though?
that May, literally, or April, excuse me. So
All right, so yeah, it's been almost a year.
yeah, so about a year. Wow, I had that written down. I was surprised. Anyways,
good job, buddy.
I know. This is one of the things I threw away when or
Thank God
eliminate.
someone out of the four of us, thank God someone has their notes. Because it sure
Yeah,
as hell
we're
isn't me.
While we're talking
Not
about
me.
Mercedes, you
Yeah, yeah.
mentioned this on a chat separately. Is Mercedes the face of the women in AEW or is Tony? I would say it's Tony.
Tony. It's Tony.
Tony,
Oh, it's
100%.
I
8,000%.
Mercedes, I think, is a better like in-ring wrestler. Not to say Tony Storm isn't a good in-ring wrestler, but like I think Mercedes is
But
better
Mercedes-
in the ring.
She's more
Agreed.
technical, 100%.
agree.
Mercedes is an hell of a wrestler, but her pros and not, the outside stuff, not as good as other
Agreed.
not as good
I
as
think the
Mariah
reactions
or
Tony Storm gets are
Tony.
huge. Like when Tony
Oh.
Storm does anything, people go
The
nuts.
pop list this last week was insane. I mean, it was
Yeah.
insane when she said, "Did you think I forgot?" And I mean, people
Right.
started losing their minds. They
Yes.
knew. They knew. I mean, that's how good she is.
Now, I
She-
thought that segment was incredible. It was great. But this is my only question I have for you guys about that segment. Would it have been better if it was a little bit later? Like if they waited to the Dynamite, say right before Grand Slam, and then
No,
she was
I think
Mm-mm.
I think this was on purpose, and it's gonna be dope.
It's gonna be a big build-up. It's gonna be ugly.
Yeah, for sure.
It's gonna be ugly because remember how ugly it was last time with the shoe? I think it's gonna be even uglier.
It's gonna be
because
incredible.
my first thought was that they could have had this, Mariah feeling extra cocky and confident and beat up Tony, like, I don't care, I beat you before, you're nothing to me. And then right before the pay-per-view, she turns out to be timeless, and now it's like, oh, now this is a whole new story.
Well,
I like the way they
tell-
did it. I'm not
No,
saying it was bad.
I think they're doing it on purpose that they let it loose right now, and I think because they let it loose when they did, and when's Grand Slam?
It's, I was going to say it's only in 2 weeks.
February 15th,
2
I think.
weeks.
Yeah.
2
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah.
So there's
I
Now,
think-
do we think that Tony Storm, like I'm talking about on screen, do we think Tony Storm was acting the whole time that she forgot who she was? Like,
Yes.
that she
I
did
think,
yeah.
the
I
Yeah.
think
thing she was
that's
acting the whole time,
apparent.
or did something, or did Mariah May jog her memory and bring her
No,
back?
I think it
think-
was on purpose.
I think if it would have been an instance where it was like Mariah jogged her memory, I think it would have gone down totally different because she says the hardest part to play is yourself. So
Yeah.
she was in on it the
Right.
whole
100%.
time.
No, this
Yeah.
is 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. 100% her faking it as the rock
So
star.
then why did she do it? Just to get to make Mariah think that
Right,
she
to
can
play
beat her
it-
easily.
Just to play
To
Mariah.
play Mariah
to
to
play,
win.
Because she's
to play
playing-
off.
She's playing the greatest part of all of history. Like,
Because she's not
she's
just to play off-
timeless, you dummies.
not just to play off Mariah, but it's just kind of like it would make Mariah think, oh, she doesn't remember. It kind of like Mariah will let her guard down. Like she didn't see that coming.
Right.
Kind of like that.
This is
Yeah,
the
ki-
greatest story in wrestling history.
It's
It
so
really
It is. Because
it's
it's
So
so-
good.
Good.
it's now officially flipped because Mariah did that to her. Now she's done it back. So again, like Rick said, what's the evolution? Because you have to have the rubber match.
Yeah.
So they each
By the
screwed each
way-
other over once. Does someone
Yeah, there has to be a third one. How do they get there? I don't know. I want to know. That'll be fun.
right? Does Mina get involved? and
Ooh.
like
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
like
Nina
there's
has-
so many
yeah.
ways it could go. Oh man, this rules. And like
Good.
it's in what 13
And both of
days or
them, their acting
Seven.
has been incredible. Like Toni Storm, obviously, but Mariah too. Like her acting
Yeah.
through this whole thing has been unreal.
Yes.
I feel like
like it seems like Mariah came in and it was like, oh, she just came in, and why are they giving this chick who just came in such a big opportunity and stuff? Because she's amazing and she worked with Tony and she is worth it. She has been so amazing, and I love every minutia of this so much.
I also kind of wonder if maybe talking about it has something else has to happen. I kind of also wonder if Harley might play into this because she likes to buddy up with Mean Girls,
True.
and I don't know. Maybe Harley's trying to find someone to play.
And
You know,
she's
Well,
steal the
and
rats.
she had that
she's
little
also-
segment with Tony. Yeah.
she's
Mhm.
also been they've strapped a rocket onto her as well, and
Oh,
yeah,
That's a good point because she's not only Australian, she had a segment with Tony. She likes to partner up with Mean Girls. She's also kind of took Tony's spot in the Outcasts.
yeah, no, she's
I could
Yeah,
see Harley
that'll be
coming
fun.
into play.
I would love that.
I just want her to sing more. That's all I want.
Hardy's amazing.
She's
Jesus
great.
Christ. She's hilarious. She can
Oh,
sing. She plays all the instruments. She speaks Mandarin fluently. Like,
when
Now, did
she-
anyone see that behind the scenes thing they posted about after Collision when Timeless Toni Storm returned? Did anyone see that?
can't remember if I watched that or not.
Remember when Mariah attacked Tony on the stage and they showed backstage Toni Storm like people helping her backstage and she was like
Yeah.
bloody and she was like stumbling and confused. Remember that?
Yes.
They did it again backstage and they showed Mariah May walking backstage looking confused and like out of it. And then Toni Storm walked in like fluffing her hair, being like fully cocky and full of her. It was great. It was such a callback to that. And the
Ooh.
way Mariah May walked in shuffling looked exactly like the way Tony did months ago. So good.
See, I didn't watch that. I'll have to watch that. this
hey,
evening. Yes.
hey guys. Remember when the women's division in AEW was bullshit and everyone hated it?
Well, no one ever hated it except for maybe the people at TBS.
Well,
Yes.
They don't. They just.
it
They still
wasn't-
only give.
look
they
where
still
we
give
are
them-
now. Look where we are now.
Biddy's trying
exactly.
to say what my drunken friend here is trying to say is it
How
wasn't
dare
what it
you.
is now.
How dare you?
It wasn't what it is now, but they still only get one match a week on Dynamite.
Yeah,
True.
well,
But I'm talking like story wise. Like, I mean, look at
Oh, yeah.
because it just feels like they didn't give the respect of a good narrative to the women like they have now. I mean, because when everything first started, it was kind of all like, "Hey, Britt Baker's our big name, and we're just gonna push Britt because
It's
that was
basically
like the
Britt
big
Baker
thing."
storylines, and that's it. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. And now
Yeah.
we have all these different little pieces and parts, and we have Mercedes and these different little bits kind of coming together.
and now the best part of AEW out of any of the men or women is Toni Storm.
Yeah.
100%.
Though,
Were you-
to be fair, from like mid 2022, early 2023, like they didn't really have any storylines other than MJF. Like they were in a real drought of storylines. Just AEW in general
Very
had-
true.
CM
didn't have
Punk.
much going on in terms of
CM
CM
Punk
Punk wrecked a
sucked.
lot of stuff. It
He
wrecked a lot of
sucked.
stuff.
He sucked all the energy.
He
What
sucked all
a-
the energy, and I think they had a bunch of like all their plans involved him.
Yeah.
And then he was gone, so they
Kaboom.
kind of just did nothing.
Yeah.
For a while.
Well, and Toni Storm took it and ran with it.
She's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
you know,
that's why we did this podcast, is because Toni Storm is Jesus Christ. She
We
is-
love
she is. What?
women's wrestling on this podcast.
we
Is
do.
what it boils down
That's
to.
that's
Well-
not a joke. It's legit. We love women's wrestling, and
1,000%. Now, before we wrap things up, I do have a question. And with what we just said before, like I almost called her Sasha Banks. Wow, that's terrible. With Mercedes and Tony and Statlander and Willow, who eventually becomes like the legend of this division. Like, going down, like, of course, we're going to talk about like MJF was going to go down in history as on the men's side, Hangman on the men's side, the Bucks in the tag team division, who here now, like, and again, this could change. They could sign anybody in any time, but with who's there right now, who's the legend in this group of ladies?
It's
Who
Toni.
becomes a legend?
It's Toni.
Toni.
It's still
It's
Toni?
Toni.
Okay.
As much as I love Mercedes, because I just love her, it's still Toni, because it's just Toni is just so well rounded.
Yeah,
whole.
the only
Yeah,
one who
that's-
I mean, Willow possibly, but I haven't seen.
I was going to say Willow's.
Oh no! Like
but I can't
Toni's-
see her doing the same stuff that Tony's doing at that
No.
level.
Agreed.
Like,
Agreed.
not the same gimmick, but just any gimmick this much. Like,
Yeah, Willow's just going to be. I'm sorry, Rick. Go ahead.
it's weird. Like the internet. I don't know if you spend time like on like the the wrestling subreddits or whatever.
No,
but
we're
like
not fucking
We're not
dorks
nerds.
like you.
the mood on AEW generally has changed in the last couple years since all that Punk stuff happened, and generally it's a lot more negative than it used to be. But if you read any of the threads where people are talking about AEW, there's a whole bunch of people who are like, oh, I don't watch it much, but I watch Toni Storm. Like,
Yeah.
she's transcended it.
And that's awesome. Like,
And she deserves every freaking minute of it.
oh, absolutely. Like I said, I learned so much on, like, I knew who she was when she was in NXT, but again, we all know I don't watch, but like I knew her name and I knew she made enough waves that, oh, she could probably succeed there. And then when she did, and she signed an AEW, like I said, I knew her name and I knew her reputation, but I was blown away from day one. Like, just, she's off the charts.
Well, as many of these lovely people who actually tune into our podcast, which I'm grateful for you.
Yeah.
Anyway, they all know I didn't watch wrestling since I was like a 14-year-old, and then lost, I didn't watch AEW till my ex was randomly like, oh, watch this is cool, and then I got hooked. So to be fair, I didn't watch any wrestling for decades and then got into this, but I'll tell you what, man,
Sick.
Sheeta got me
Yeah.
back into wrestling.
She is slays too. I always forget about her.
Kenny Omega got me back into wrestling. Moxley got me back into wrestling. And Toni Storm got me back into wrestling, and Toni Storm is the one that keeps me hooked to this day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Tony's probably one of the biggest reasons to tune into the show.
She is 100%.
Because I don't want to watch
Oh, yeah.
MJF.
There's a lot of weeks where I'm like, I don't really care about much on this show, but if Toni
Yeah,
Storm's going to be on,
I
like,
don't
I'll
want
watch
to
it.
watch. I don't want to watch MJF and Jeff Jarrett talk about who deserves.
Oh, come on,
what.
that's awesome.
Like,
Right.
Because
No.
I don't care. I
That'd
want
be
to watch
awful.
Tony.
Right.
I mean, I've gotten a kick. Don't get me wrong. I've gotten a kick out of MJF and stuff, and I love Hangman. Don't get me wrong.
Oh,
Hangman
Hangman's great
Swerve-
too. But
Hangman and Swerve. Oh my God, wonderful. But Toni Storm is the one who has kept me hooked. And again, I know Saraya on a personal level, and I love her. I mean, she's such an amazing human. But on a wrestling, she's not keeping me hooked. It's Toni.
Now here's the interesting thing for me. What I think is this is not an AEW problem. This is a wrestling problem.
Okay.
A lot of wrestling companies throughout history, including today, have a problem that once someone wins the title, or once someone ends their big storyline, or once someone accomplishes their goal, they don't really know what to do with them. It's happened a million times. The
Yes.
wrestler
100%.
100%.
So what happens with Toni once this Mariah May feud ends? There's probably gonna be another match. It might be in Japan. It might be at All In Texas. It's gonna be somewhere. But once this feud ends and they move on from one another, where do you think Toni goes?
I don't know,
think she
but you know
reinvents
what?
herself again.
I was gonna say if I have faith in anything, I know Toni Storm will figure it out. She has shown that.
Yeah, like I said, she always changed her gimmicks. Like she didn't like to do the same thing. So, I mean, she probably has 3 gimmicks that she's in the process of, ironing some wrinkles out to get started. I think Timeless Toni Storm is going to be like the Mariah May era. And then whoever's next, she'll be a character based on, she'll be known as that. Like if it's her and Sheeta, then we'll say it would be the next iteration. And her and Britt Baker, there'd be another character. You know what I mean? I think she'll always do that.
I'm more worried about what Mariah's going to do than Toni. Toni's fine. Mariah, what she's going to do.
Yeah, that's
anything to worry about.
Problem for like I said, it's happened a million times that like once someone is in a big feud,
they can't follow up with it.
They can't follow up with it, and a company doesn't follow up on it. They don't really know what to do. And some people are fine with that. Like Swerve could be fine, or Hangman will be fine no matter what, because they'll figure something out. Just like Toni will figure something out and they'll be fine. But AEW is a place where the super creative people have an opportunity to be super creative and make great opportunities for themselves. But that doesn't work for everybody. That works for Swerve or Hangman or Toni Storm, but it doesn't necessarily work. Some people need guidance and assistance and help. Well, and I don't know what Mariah May is like. Maybe she's super creative too. I have no idea. But yeah, that could be a problem.
That's the thing. Like I feel like there's more people behind the scenes that are able to help people be more creative, and I hope those people
definitely is more now than there used to be, for sure.
Oh,
well,
100%.
And that's the RJ City was a big part of Tony's story and stuff, and he keeps on keeping on. What an asset!
Oh, dude, slays.
That's what I mean. Like they're getting more people behind the scenes. They're building. That's the thing. People don't realize. Like they've built this thing from scratch.
Can they hire a sound guy?
They do need a sound guy.
Like a guy to just fix the sound because it's bad.
Oh, don't get me started.
I mean, running live sound sucks. Let's say that first and foremost. But
100%.
I'm working for $1 billion company.
Anyone can do it. Like I'm not saying that for sure.
No. To be fair, but yeah, like story-wise.
Yeah, story-wise, they definitely have more going on. They definitely have more people involved in it now.
Yes.
They've always been really good at like weaving stories together. The like one of my favorite things they're doing right now, where like Jeff Jarrett and MJF are feuding, which is not my favorite thing. But MJF is also terrible. Kind of feuding with Hangman, who's still kind of feuding with Swerve, right? And I guess they managed to loop a bunch of storylines together. So I hope that they could do that with Mariah or with Toni and kind of weave them into maybe a storyline with Willow or
Rick, you said something that it made me laugh when you were talking about Hangman on Dynamite. Whenever Hangman was knocking on Swerve's door, and Taz said, "What could he possibly have to say to that man?" Like it was such awesome wrestling logic. Like
Taz,
you
Taz
blew
is
his
hilarious.
house up.
He's the best.
Yes.
Taz is hilarious because even like Jericho sucks, but he had that New York minute and then it ended. And Excalibur said something about like, "Oh, he's challenged whoever," and then Taz goes, "I think that was more than a minute."
Yeah, it was great.
It was great.
It was, I loved it. We kind of changed the format up this week, and I think it's a format we're going to stay with. So we hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, later.